Good morning, Early Edge family, says the entire Early Edge chat. Thanks for being in here, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday night football. Got a lot of football coming your way, a lot of soccer coming your way, courtesy of SportsLine and the Early Edge. And of course, we are brought to you by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Well, from yesterday's show, we still have a couple of picks pending, including one from Martin Green and one from me, but we still managed to go 2-1. We hit that Jalen Green under. Don't forget, that was courtesy of our new guy, prop bet guy, who was absolutely awesome. Crushing it, I think, already in the NBA. He hits his play, and of course, no surprise, Tom Casale hits his. Martin Green, I was talking to Buckets before the show started. Apparently, a goal was taken off the board late in the game. Martin Green otherwise would have hit his. But either way, speaking of Buckets, let's go ahead and bring in the stars of the show. That's all of you in the chat, of course. Mark Buckholtz, Mr. Big, Reed Phillips, Big Cheesy, Brad Betts, and then, of course, the aforementioned Buckets, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein. We got a lot of picks to get to. We got a lot of Thursday night football. We've got Early Edge primetime tonight with more Thursday night football. But, Mike, we got to start with college football. I honestly, when I heard the rumors about Bill Belichick joining UNC, my first thought was that's just a rumor. That's maybe that's Bill's team kind of stirring something up for something bigger. But it looks like Bill Belichick, it's confirmed he is going to UNC. Your reaction?
I definitely think it's interesting, Sia. You talk about him not finding a job in the NFL for this season. And I just think it's kind of telling that is the job that ultimately becomes the one that gets accepted, because there really weren't too many offers. So for me, I think that, he's had an incredible career, one of the best of all time. There's no doubt about that. I just think the game has changed so much, and I'm very interested to see how it translates at that level. But I think the more interesting thing to me is going to a college program like that, which I believe is going to be way more of a nightmare and way more stress inducing than coaching in the NFL, just because you're recruiting 24/7 for every single player on your roster at all moments. I think we see a lot of people trying to go to the NFL from college, not the other way around. Yeah. So I find it interesting that this was the landing spot, and some of the other candidates that were going to get the job if Bill didn't get it, they definitely don't map to the name value that Bill certainly has.
Larry, I would have thought that maybe next year Bill would have found a job in the NFL. Maybe he doesn't want it. I thought Dallas was on the table for Bill Belichick. Once Mike McCarthy goes, that would be such a Jerry Jones move. Again, I do want to get into the picks, but your reaction, I mean, Bill has to deal with NIL now too, which is just becoming more of, in my opinion, kind of more of a headache as each month goes by. I mean, we heard about the kid from BYU. He's going to make $7 million from the BYU collective, which is, by the way, more than some of the lottery picks. It's more than Donovan Clingan makes as a rookie this year in the NBA. It's crazy. Anyway, your reaction to Bill Belichick?
Yeah, he hung on too long in New England. I think he would have got the next job if he had maybe left a year or two earlier. Since Tom Brady left, he hasn't been the same. Yes, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but that did tarnish him a little bit, I think, not only in my mind, but in the eyes of other NFL GMs, and he wasn't able to get an NFL job. Good luck to him in college.
Yeah, Brad Betts says the Titans could have probably used Bill, which reminds me, Buckets, you must know who Bill Belichick is, and you have to be the most surprised of us all, being the noted football fan that you are.
Well, as we all know, Sia, William Stephen Belichick is a descendant of the Bill Parcells coaching tree, who began his coaching career in 1975 as an assistant for the Baltimore Colts. That's probably a typo.
Yeah.
Is that a typo? Indianapolis Colts? Oh, okay. Whoops. I have no idea. I'm happy for him. I'm mad at him. Whatever we want to go with, I'm here for it.
Oh, well, we still received some information from you and your Wikipedia entry there. So we appreciate that. All right, let's finally get to some bets. Mike, we're going to start with you. This is a bet that you like to hit. We're going with the Rams. We're going with the team total over. However, we're going with the first half.
Yeah, it's just a play on the number again, Sia. Look, it's 10.5, and I found it at plus 110. And that's a number that would normally map to a game total around 43.5, 44, not what we see in this matchup. Now, I know the Rams, for most of the season, haven't been a great first half team in terms of scoring points. However, a little bit like the Miami Dolphins, I think you have to look at some of the sample size and consider that they haven't had the whole season with everyone healthy. When they've got Puka Nacua, more specifically than anyone, on the field. I think that changes this team offensively here. It's also a must-win spot. They've got a lot of life left. Both sides somehow really do because of the division they play in, but it's a gotta-have-it spot. So the idea, again, a touchdown and 2 field goals, easy cash, 2 touchdowns, you'd certainly get there. At 10.5 at +110, you get the rare instance of a 2-point conversion in a field goal. But when I look at this particular matchup, I think we have to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, because we've seen the injuries that have piled up really on both sides of the ball, but we always talk about the offensive side. This team, since week 8, 21st in the NFL in terms of EPA per play defensively, a team that we generally think of as being a great defensive team. Now, the Rams, they're 25th in terms of EPA defensively. That means I think we should see a little bit of a shootout here. I'm not expecting the level of the Bills game where it was indoors last week, but I do like this number. And I thought this should have been something that was priced at 12.5 and with juice around -120, which is a number, again, we normally see, one that I played on this show with other teams. So just the fact that you're getting a 3-point spread, a 49-point total, and not this 12.5 or 13.5, I will take my shot here on the Rams first half team total, 10.5 +110.
Yeah, Mike, I am surprised at the fact that you're getting the +110, but at the fact that it's not 12.5. I mean, I agree. Now, listen, there are some people dropping some knowledge in the chat, and we do know that we might see a wet field. It might be a little rainy, but the wind is going to be down. I mean, I don't think the weather conditions are going to be dire. And I do want to point out to your Rams total, KC3 dropping some knowledge. Like I said, Garendo is questionable. We know that. I think people are expecting him to suit up and play. Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw also questionable. Mike and Larry, Mike, I know you have something. Larry, I'll go to you. I don't expect either of them to play, which just depletes that defense against a relatively healthy Rams offense. So, I mean, that makes me like Mike McClure's play even better. Mike, you had something to follow up on.
Yeah, I would just say, I think that when you look at who the Rams have, once they get them the ball, I think a wet field, a wet condition in general, just makes it more difficult to tackle Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams in space as well. So while, yeah, it could impact the kicking game and some of the deep balls, we're not talking about a ton of deep balls necessarily from the Rams. Like, yes, they take the shots to Demarcus Robinson, things like that, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball pretty consistently here.
Larry, any follow-up?
Yeah, I'm on the Niners side of this game. I wish I could have gotten it below 3. Yes, those guys might not suit up, but this is a team that had 7 sacks and a 36% pressure rate last week. They get their all-pro safety Hufanga back in the lineup. They get their top cornerback, Diamadar Lenoir, back in the secondary. But this week they won't have Malik Mustafa, one of their other safeties. But I do think this 49ers defense will show up tonight. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be anything like we saw last week against the Bills.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to place that pick from Mike McClure, go to BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10 and you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's bonus code EDGE, EDGE. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody. I think we've had at least 10 or 15 people call for buckets and an INT prop, and we'll probably do that at the end of the show, maybe before the recap screen, but we got to get to buckets Europa League picks. We're going to do it right after this message from our partners.
Historic rivals with unforgettable seasons meet in a game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA, December 14th on CBS.
We're back on the early edge. And Buckets, I do have to ask you before we get to Europa League picks, do you have the dice or the coin or the horoscope or the almanac, whatever it is you use for the INT props? Because those have been hitting.
I do have the coin, but before I get into the coin toss, let me get into the plays that I actually put the time and research and really want to find value in for Europa League before I inevitably cash something based on a coin toss. See, I've got 2 Europa plays for us this afternoon, and we're going to start with a really good one between Maccabi Tel Aviv taking on Rigas Futbola Skola. We've got one of the best teams in the Israeli Premier League who are a bit of a tricky team to bet on because they love a red card, unfortunately. They've gotten red cards of 2 in 2 of their Europa League fixtures so far this season, but when they don't get a red card, they're incredible. They just beat the Turkish Giants Besiktas 3-1, and it was not a lucky game. It is a game that they could have won 4-5-6-1. They absolutely dominated this Turkish side, and now they're taking a Riga side who is worse than Besiktas. I'm taking Maccabi Tel Aviv over 1.5 team total. A little bit of juice here at -135, but I see them winning this game. And if there's no red card, they might get 3 or 4 goals here if you want a little ladder action. Then for my second matchup, I'm going to Victoria Pilsen taking on Manchester United. Manchester United, a team that we've all heard about. And if you are a fan of them, I do want to apologize because my word, you guys are just struggling to get it right now. This is a team with so much talent, and the talent is doing well attacking, but they just can't figure out their defense to save their life right now. They conceded 3 against Nottingham Forest in their midweek fixture here in the EPL, and they also conceded 2 to Bodo Glimt in their last Europa League fixture. Victoria Pilsen, not a good side by any means, but they're a team that is always capable of getting 1. Both teams' score has hit in their last 4 fixtures straight here. I'm going to take BTTS all day at -130 when you have 2 teams who just refuse to play defense right now.
All right. We've got those 2 Europa League picks, and we've got a coin flip coming up, which reminds me, somebody, when I said the almanac, somebody referenced or put in the chat that they thought that was funny. Back to the Future, has really good sequels to it, right? Everybody, put in the chat a movie franchise that actually has good sequels. And maybe before the show ends, we'll go around the horn and get everybody's opinion on it. The one that comes to mind to me, and it's kind of random, is Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, really good. 3, not so much. That's a little old school. But if you have a movie series that you respect the sequels, like Back to the Future, let us know. Die Hard, that's a good one, Brian Thompson. Dark Knight from Big Cheesy. Rocky, of course. Austin Powers. Oh, my gosh, you guys were prepared for this question. All right, well, you're probably prepared for these picks, too, because I put them on SportsLine, and I gave one out yesterday on the show. I do want to remind you that I have Brock Purdy over 243.5 passing yards. I gave that out on the show yesterday morning. I put it on SportsLine before the show yesterday morning. It's pretty much universally in the 250 range now. I mean, the rain does scare me a little bit, but clearly this line has moved up. You've gotten a ton of closing line value if you put this bet in when I gave it to everybody. So obviously still liking the Brock Purdy over 243.5. I got to be honest, if you missed the boat and it's like 250, 251, I'd probably lay off. This is why you become a member of SportsLine, right? This is why you watch the early edge when I give these picks out. I think it's a big enough difference between 243.5 and anything close to like 250, 251 that I'd probably just back off at this point. The other pick that I also put on SportsLine, I think yesterday afternoon, I'm going to give it out on this show for everybody. It's Tyreek Hill over 66.5 receiving yards. Another one where you've probably received a lot of closing line value if you remember SportsLine. You put this in when I put it in because it's pretty much universally 68, 69, or 71.5. I do still like it at those numbers. Tyreek Hill is sort of back now. I mean, we know there's a lot of targets with Jalen Waddle, with Jonnu Smith, with, of course, Devon Achane. But Tyreek Hill over the last 2 games, not only is he getting the targets 14 and 9 over the last 2, but he's been really efficient with them. And in this game against the Texans with optimal field conditions, Mike, this is a game we're going to talk about on FFT DFS at 11 o'clock, you, me, and Meg, when we go through every single game. But I really like Tyreek Hill's role now in this offense, and it's going to be a back and forth. This Dolphins defense, not superimposing. Texans coming off a bye. They should be able to move the ball pretty well. It's going to require Miami to throw the ball like they always do. So give me Tyreek Hill over 66.5 receiving yards. Again, last 2 games, we're starting to see the old Tyreek Hill. All right, let's go back to Thursday night football. I almost said Back to the Future. Larry, let's go to Rams-Niners. You've got 2 plays.
I've got 2 plays, and Sia, first, I want to support your play because it ties into my plays. Aaron Banks is back. That's the starting left guard for the 49ers. And the guy next to him, Trent Williams' replacement, Jalen Moore, is actually playing very well in terms of pass blocking. 5 pressures and no sacks allowed in 100 pass block snaps. So I think this is going to be a very good passing game for Brock Purdy. The Rams starting cornerback, Kobe Durant, is out tonight with a chest injury. The Rams have an elite pressure rate all season, but the last 2 weeks, it's been bottom 10. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe, some of those young guys hitting the wall. For whatever reason, this is a great matchup for the 49ers passing game, and specifically Juwan Jennings. He's been a monster ever since Brandon Ayuk went out. Over 30% target share. We know he went for 175 in the first matchup, had a Randy Moss moment, if you recall. So I just love this matchup for Juwan Jennings, over 68.5. This is another one that should have been gotten earlier, but I will still play it now, and I'm seeing 70 and even higher on Juwan Jennings. And then this one is the narrative play. Deebo Samuel came out publicly and said he's not getting the ball enough. And it wasn't a reaction of he's being a diva or we need to keep that in-house. It was more like, we love Debo and we want to get him the ball. That's what Purdy said. Kittle said he's going to have a huge game. Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, I wish he wouldn't have said it, but we all want to get Debo the ball. I think with Isaac Guerrero expected to play, we're not going to see much rushing from him. That hasn't worked. Everybody is kind of out on that. That's not a surprise play anymore. I think they're going to get him the ball with some screens, see what he can do. I don't know how effective he's going to be because he's not the same player that he used to be. But I know how important he is, how much they love Debo. They're going to get him the ball 4 times tonight. That's why I went over 3.5 catches.
Yeah, the Debo one is interesting. I do see somebody asking about Ricky Pearsall. What's so interesting about him is that he's really fallen off over the last few games. Now, I don't know if they're going to design a lot of stuff for him, but his prop is only 15.5, actually 16.5 receiving yards. Maybe that's something more to discuss on Early Edge Primetime, but he's kind of been shut out over the last few games. But Larry, to your point, I do think, this is my personal opinion, I think the path for the Rams is to run the ball on the Niners. I think the path to the Niners, and that doesn't mean Stafford and Nakua and Kupp are going to have bad games necessarily, but I do think the path to the Niners is to pass on the Rams. So I do think that a guy like Ricky Pearsall is more likely to kind of bounce back from kind of the nothingness that he's been through over the last few games. So I think he's an interesting ladder play too, because we know he can get deep downfield. Don't be surprised if there's a couple of plays designed for Ricky Pearsall. Speaking of Thursday Night Football, Buckets, is the coin prepared to make an INT determination? And do you need the names of the quarterbacks?
I don't even know that, or I don't need the names. I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to tell you heads or tails and let you tell me which one that is, okay? So the first team listed as heads, the second team listed as tails. Does that make sense?
Oh, second team would be the home team, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. So it is bad flip. That's okay. Tails, so the 49ers quarterback.
All right. Well, that's Brock Purdy. I'm the one with the over on his passing yards, which honestly an INT would actually help that. So I'm totally cool with that. All right, Brock Purdy. I don't think somebody let us know what the number is on a Brock Purdy interception, but the coin. Go ahead, Buckets.
And I just do want to say, unrelated, someone asked, why aren't we betting on Chelsea today? Because that's a team that we've kind of been hammering over the last couple of months. They're playing in a conference match starting in 10 minutes. They had to travel 7,000 miles to Kazakhstan. It's currently minus 11 degrees there, and they're playing none of their starters. So that's why we're staying away from them. That game might end 0-0 with no shots because everyone just wants to get the hell out of there. So I would stay off that game. Just throwing that out there.
Okay. And I do want to update. Mike, did you have some follow-up? Did I miss something? No. Okay.
Nope. I'm just enjoying Buckets for Buckets.
Exactly.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Well, okay. That is a very positive interpretation of that comment. Okay, let's see. Chris Kish, Harry Potter, Mr. Big, Lord of the Rings. Jonathan says Shrek. Just want to go through a few of these. Lethal Weapon, that's a good one. I'm going to go around the horn, fellas, and before we get to the recap screen, I'm going to ask you. Vincent says The Godfather, Equalizer from Freddie Bear, Ace Ventura, Rambo, oldie but goodie. There's a lot of good answers. Terminator, that's a good one. American Pie. So many answers. Thanks, everybody, for participating in this. I know I missed about 1,000 of those. Mike, do you have a movie franchise that you like?
I'll read the last one, Home Alone.
That's a good one, though.
In the chat. Home Alone's good.
Home Alone's good, and Home Alone 2 is great. That is a great sequel. Buckets, you put something in the chat related to this, I think, but I've never heard of it. What is it?
How to Train Your Dragon? You've never heard of
Literally,
that?
I've never heard of it, no.
Okay, that's fine.
So I guess that's can anybody confirm that that's an actual movie? All right, Larry, by the way, I love your attire. You're almost looking like you've got the top button. Do you have a movie franchise that has at least 2 movies that you loved in terms of a sequel?
Well, very uneven in terms of all the sequels, but Rocky 3 and the scene on the beach, Eye of the Tiger, training for that fight always pumps me up.
Yeah, not as good as Rocky 4, the scene in Russia or whatever, in the mountains, in my opinion. But we can agree to disagree on that one. All right, let's take a look at the recap screen. You know these picks are some of my picks from yesterday. I have Brock Purdy over 243.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill over 66.5 receiving yards. I would play this one up to probably 71.5. Mike McClure is on the Rams first half team total over 10.5 at plus 110. Buckets, Maccabi team total over 1.5 at minus 135. And Victoria Plzen, Manchester United, both teams to score minus 130. And Larry Hartstein, Deebo Samuel over 3.5 receptions tonight at minus 156. Squeaky wheel narrative there, folks. Juwan Jennings over 68.5 receiving yards, minus 113. Hoping both of those come in for my Brock Purdy play. Meet the Parent, says Big Cheesy. I don't think we got to that one. Back to the Future. Yeah, Kevin, we talked about that one. That's the movie that sparked the question. And we got a lot of questions on Early Edge Primetime every single night. So make sure you all join us then at 7:15 with Will Brinson leading the crew there. It's been a great show. Hopefully everybody has a great Thursday. I'm very much looking forward to what amounts to a playoff game between the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Going to be exciting stuff. And looking forward to Early Edge Primetime and having a great Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, Buckets, I'm the Counselor of Cash, Sia Nejad. This is the Early Edge, and we rest our case.